Hi, and welcome to the third webinar on metabolic health. And today we're going to be talking about building sustainable habits. So this is kind of going to help us to reinforce and also bring in all of the habits that we've learned that are useful for our metabolic health and actually build them into our lifestyle and how we can practice what we preach, so to speak. So a reminder, I'm Mary Jo McGuire, a registered nutritionist with Food Choice. And before we deep dive into this topic, just to quickly go through a disclaimer again, Food Choice are committed to supporting you to improve your nutritional health and well-being. Our group nutrition sessions aim to provide high quality evidence-based information. Our content and recommendations are for the general population and do not address specific individual requirements. This training is not intended to be a substitute for professional advice, diagnosis, or treatment. And if you do have any concerns or questions about your nutritional health, please consult with a qualified professional. So today, what is going to be on our agenda, the habit loop, explaining more about what that is, how a habit is formed, and how we can build better habits. Nutrition focused habits. So these are specific for metabolic health and the ones that we want to build more of into our lifestyle. So we're going to go through planning, gradual swaps, mindful eating, and overcoming barriers that potentially could be getting in the way. So the habit loops, let's start there. So first part of the habit loop we begin with is a cue. So the cue basically is where the trigger starts. So this can be a trigger. A trigger can be a place, it can be a time, emotion, or a specific situation. So for example, walking into the kitchen in the morning when you wake up, that's the cue for you to eat breakfast, for example. There's so many different examples where there could be a specific place and that you go to, and that's your cue to take an action. So the routine then is the action or behavior that follows the cue. So this can be a positive action or a negative action. So like I said, you walk into the kitchen in the morning, that's your cue to make a decision to take an action. So that could be positive, you make a balanced breakfast, or it could be negative, you just make a cup of coffee and you go. So not that coffee is negative, but you're not having a balanced breakfast. So that's not ideally we're having a balanced breakfast to start our day. So that's just an example of what a cue can be or the trigger, and then the action is the routine that you repetitively take. So the reward then is the benefit that you gain after taking the action. So it can be satisfaction, it can be relief, it can be pleasure, and this reward reinforces this behavior. So for example, eating that balanced breakfast in the morning can leave you feeling satisfied, full, and you enjoy that breakfast. So it reinforces you doing so. It also will give you the reward of keeping you fuller for longer instead of constantly craving throughout the day and having energy drop. So again, further reinforcing the behavior. You can also get rewards from negative behaviors, including smoking, for example. It can be a stress reliever. So this is why negative habits build, because there is always a reward after a habit that makes us kind of want to do them. So that's just something to bear in mind, like checking in with the reward afterwards. So if you emotionally eat, say, for example, another cue for you could be when you sit down in front of the TV after dinner, that's your cue to start snacking, and that's your habit, that's your routine that you could repetitively take in the evening when you sit in that trigger point, the sofa to watch TV in the evening. And the reward you can get it could be numbing your mind, it can be reducing stress for the day, it can be distracting you from maybe your thoughts. So if you're aware of kind of what is the reward and what benefit you're getting from this, you can maybe circle back and think of another action that you could take that also could support your busy mind, your stress levels, and that can also be a way to reduce then the negative habit and replace it with one that's actually helping it more so. And then repetition over time, the loop strengthens, making the habit automatic and harder to break. So you'll often hear people say, I just can't not have something sweet after dinner. And it's generally due to like that cue after dinner is normally your trigger for wanting something sweet. And that has just been reinforced and reinforced and reinforced over time, building up this habit. So the seed of every habit is a single tiny decision, but as that decision is repeated, a habit sprouts and grows stronger. And this is said for good and bad habits. So both positive and negative habits, whatever way you want to look at them. Habits are something that you repeat over time and do on a frequent basis. So when it comes to then the kind of habits we want to be building in for our nutrition and metabolic health, we can look at meal planning and yeah, and prep as well. This is really, really important. So why do we need to plan? So it reinforces intentional choices. So you've made the decision you want to feel better, you want to eat healthier. So by taking the action then to plan your meals, you're reinforcing the choices you intentionally made. So it's the next action after you've made the choice to be healthy. It avoids impulsive decisions. So if you have a plan for your day, if you wake up in the morning and say, okay, today I'm going to have this for lunch and this for dinner, and I'm going to bring this snack, you're way more likely to stick to that because you've written it out and you're intentional. And it also will avoid that impulsive decisions because you have that planned for the day. It really does reduce the frequency of impulsive decisions. And some great way to kind of keep on track and kind of make your life even easier with this and avoid impulsive decisions is having some similar lunch at breakfast and lunch during the week so that you don't have any decisions to make. You know what you'll have for breakfast and you know what you'll have for lunch with a few tweaks here and there if you need to. But if you have a similar kind of breakfast and lunch, it kind of reduces that decision overwhelm that you can get. So that's another tip as well. And when life is busy, having a meal plan and having things prepped, it really helps you stay on track. There's nothing more hectic than coming in from work in the evening, having no idea what you're going to make, and then just going for the convenient, less healthy option. And we've all been guilty of that, and that's okay. It's more about kind of avoiding that happening on the regular. So basically, avoiding that becoming a habit that we want to check in with. So we want to, if this is becoming something we're doing quite often, where can you address this? Can you do a bit of meal planning to stop this? So, how do we actually plan then? So, we plan balanced meals in advance. So, once you know that how to create a balanced meal, you put together some proteins, some fats, and carbs on a plate, and then having a plan for them in advance. You need to schedule in the prep time though. So it's great like sitting down and writing your plan, but you do need to have some form of prep. So I normally suggest at the weekends go out and do your food shop, do an inventory in your cupboards, fridge, what you need. Go and write a shopping list then what you need and go and buy all the ingredients that you need to make for these meals you plan on making. And then kind of get some things batch prepped. So you could prep your proteins in advance for lunches, have your chicken breast cooked and seasoned. That can go in sandwiches or salads or wraps for the week. You could chop your veggies up so you have them ready to go for any meals you plan on using the vegetables for. And also make your life simple by buying things like frozen berries, frozen veg, frozen stir-fry veg mixes that you can use quickly to add to meals. So when you are in a bit of a rush, have your chicken breast already pre-sliced, throw in some frozen vegetables, and then that can help to take the time out of your to make your less time basically prepping and your meals. And start simple. You don't want to go all in like making complicated meals and having, fancy kind of organization systems and overthinking it basically. Keep it really simple, have a similar breakfast and similar lunch. So you're not like having different things all of the time. Like I said, this will keep you on track and have less decisions to make. And then with your dinners, you want to have a source of protein and a source of good carbohydrates and vegetables and color on your plate. And bringing in some smart snacks as well. So with snacks, try to have a bit of fruit or vegetables in your snack, and then maybe a bit of protein or fat. So for example, an apple and some low-fat cheese, some peanut butter and apple is also lovely, hummus and carrot sticks, a high fiber bar, things like that can be great to have planned and ready to go and in your arsenal, so to speak, to help you stay on track. And when you do go to the effort of meal planning and prepping your meals, cook in bulk. So if you're making, for example, a curry or spaghetti bolognese or a lasagna or shepherd's pie, make enough to last a few days. Instead of making just enough for one night, make enough for two. So you're saving yourself the time. So you can either freeze it for another night or have it the next day when you come in from work. It makes all the sense in the world if you do go to the effort double up at least the meals so that you have meals there for 2 nights and you're not having to cook every single night you get in. So some of the gradual swaps we can start to make based on what we've learned about metabolic health is switching from refined carbs to whole grains. So white rice to brown rice, white bread to brown bread, that kind of thing will make a big difference. Sugary drinks, thinking like infused water, so adding maybe some like mint leaves or lemon to water, or getting some like flavored water in the supermarket that has no sugar in it as well. Reducing then your packaged processed snacks to whole foods. So, instead of bars of chocolates, cakes, and sweets, things like that, pretzels, buns, sausage rolls, those kind of processed foods, really trying to switch to whole foods as much as you can. And then swapping your salt for herbs and spices to reduce your sodium intake, which again reduces your risk of higher blood pressure. And creamy sauces, tomato-based sauces. I always recommend this, particularly for trying to cut down calories. But if you ever go out to a restaurant or get a takeaway or just cooking at home, switch out the creamy sauces for tomato-based sauces. So if you normally go for a creamy pasta dish, go for the tomato pasta dish. If you normally go for, say, for example, the butter chicken in an Indian, go for a more tomato-based sauce. This will just help to minimize the calories from the creamy sauce, and it's a really helpful way to reduce calories. So we want to be focusing on small, manageable changes that are much easier to maintain and lead to lasting habits. So these little swaps will make a huge difference. So in the morning, if you typically have white toast for breakfast, switch to a brown bread or like a nice brown seeded bread. If you normally have a bar of chocolate for a snack mid-afternoon, could you have some oat cakes and peanut butter, or an apple and peanut butter to kind of add more nutrition to your snack? And then mindful eating. This is a really helpful way to support your overall health as well. I'm a big fan of recommending more mindful eating for clients. So basically, it's eating mindful eating with nutrition knowledge promotes healthier choices, reduces chronic disease risk, boosts meal enjoyment, and supports a positive body image. So it's a really effective way to promote overall health, and we are probably all guilty of eating more mindlessly than mindfully at times. So, what mindful eating means is where we're eating more slowly and savoring the food. So, we focus on the texture of the food, the flavors and smells. So, when you sit down, instead of just kind of diving in, start to really appreciate the smell, the texture of your meal when you eat it, the flavors of the food when you're eating it. Listening to your body. So eat when you're hungry and stop when satisfied, not when you're full. So we really shouldn't be getting to the point of fullness when we're eating. It should be satisfaction. And when we got to a satisfied level, that's when we should stop, not when we're full and heavy and uncomfortable. Avoiding distractions. So if you are guilty of eating in front of the TV or on your laptop or on your phone, this distracts you from eating, or attention isn't given to what we should be doing, which is focusing on chewing our food, breaking down our food. And if you do suffer with any digestive issues, this is a really important place. And one of the first places to start is removing distractions and start to chew your food more slowly and carefully. You'll also stop to eat when you're actually satisfied, not when you're stuffed full. And practicing portion control. So the Japanese principle of hara hachibu is basically where you eat until 80% full to avoid overeating. So just because the food is there, it doesn't mean you need to eat all of it. You really want to eat until you're comfortably full and satisfied, and to avoid overeating. So this puts pressure on your digestive system. It means we're overeating on calories. It does take time for our brain to register that we're full. So we want to slow down the eating process, slow down how quickly we eat and reduce how much we eat as we learn to pay attention to that satiety factor. And appreciate your food. So reflect on the nourishment you're providing your body. Think about how is fueling your cells, giving you energy, nourishing your body, and how grateful you are to be able to eat this food as well. So some of the barriers then to overcome is lack of time. And this is one I think most people do struggle with in the world we live in today. But any little thing you can do to prep ahead in advance, like doing your shopping at the weekend, even if you need to do an online shop, for example, to save you time from going to the supermarkets, and then prepping your meals ahead of time. So anything you can do to prep ahead, have some dinners made at the weekend to do you for the weekdays, it will add more time back into your life. We might think, oh, I don't have time to meal prep, but when we do that, we save ourselves a lot more time in the weekdays, and the act of doing so gives us back more time. If you're struggling with cravings, we really want to keep healthy snacks handy and also making sure we're having protein with every meal and regulating our blood sugars. And food for thought. So an accountability buddy could be really helpful here to kind of keep up some of these habits. So maybe you and a friend or a family member or partner could get involved here and kind of in terms of coming up with some ways to keep up the habits. Maybe you want to really work on the habit of meal planning and prepping instead of winging the week, and get a buddy to join in with you on this and tell them, yeah, I'm doing this for 5 days this week to see how I get on, and give them an update each day or at the end of the week how you got on. And adaptability during stressful times. So this was put in here, I think, again, there will always be stressful times. It's how we adapt to these stressful times that makes a difference. Instead of always kind of going to default measures like convenience foods, sweets and sugary foods, having a backup, like, you could get again, your frozen foods in the like frozen vegetables is a great way to save time. Having like just a source of protein with your meals, and a bit of rice or potatoes to make a quick meal. And just being aware that like stress will come and go, and having these habits built up over time will really help with managing stress. So it's the more we practice these habits, the more reinforced they become, and they actually help to reduce stress too overall. So hopefully you find this helpful. Don't dwell on setbacks. Progress is built one step at a time, and that's really important. You're never going to have a perfect day, nor should we be striving for a perfect day. Focusing on one better decision at a time is a really empowering way to look at it. So when we're making choices for our nutrition, and trying to make better choices, uh, we can actually use labeling in supermarkets to really help us become empowered here. So this is a labeling system that's really, really helpful for making better choices. So the foods that are in red are the nutrients, sorry, that are in red are the ones that we kind of want to have less of in the diet. So they're high in fat, high in saturated fats, high in sugar, and high in salt. So anything in the red is kind of what we want to reduce and avoid as much as possible. And we want to include more green and amber as much as possible. So green is where it's the lowest in fat, lowest in saturates, lowest in sugars, and lowest in salt. So you can use these labeling guides to help inform you when you're making decisions of what foods to buy, which I think is really, really helpful because it can get confusing, but these labeling guides can be helpful when shopping. So, key takeaways: you want to build habits one step at a time, and small, consistent steps lead to better habits and building habits that last. Celebrate the successes, no matter how small. I really encourage this as well. Like if you've had a week of, having more vegetables in the diet, or you stuck to your meal plan, that's a big win. So really celebrate those successes as well. And start with one small specific habit today. So it could be that you're going to prep your breakfast and have them in the morning, and have a balanced breakfast in the morning to see how you feel for the rest of the day. If you're someone who tends to grab breakfast on the go or not eat at all until later on in the morning. So that could be one habit that you start with. So start with one small habit that you're going to build up over time. And we'll also don't forget to check out the cook along this week, and also the tip sheet as well for the week as well, to keep up with the support for this week. And if you want more information, that you can check out the following website. So HSE and the British Dietetics Association, INDI, which is the Irish Dietetics Association, the Gut Health Doctor, Irish Heart Foundation. So they're also good resources to check out too. So thank you for watching. Hopefully you found this helpful, and I hope you enjoyed.